Greetings, I'm Vane Scott, and I tell the story about our American flag in its early days. But what about our flag? Well, there are many versions of how we got our flag and how we got the United States. I call mine the many faces of Old Glory, and you'd sure know why if you ever saw my show or watched the DVDs. The people you're going to hear about, and the incredible things they did, and all the crazy flags they made, well, it's all based on truth. For they not only gave us our flag, they gave us our country. Because you can't tell the story of how we got our flag without telling how we got the United States. Now, this isn't a history lecture tonight. There's humor in some of these stories. And I sure hope you'd laugh when it would be funny. But I know you'll be thrilled when it's thrilling. There are some sad places, too. And now, just one of the stories. A moth-eaten rag on a worm-eaten pole does not seem likely to stir a man's soul. 'Tis the deeds that were done 'neath the moth-eaten rag, when the pole was a staff and the rag was a flag. The year is 1775. We have 13 colonies on the East Coast. We're occupied by King George's army. We're not allowed to own military ships or military weapons. We can't even train military units. We're under the thumb of the king. Well, the king figures out it's costing him a fortune to keep his army of occupation here. So he had what was called the Stamp Act passed over in Parliament in England, where we had no vote. A heavy tax on the colonies. Boy, did we get mad about that. Taxation without representation is tyranny, we said. We want to vote on our own tax money. We want to spend it here on roads and bridges and schools and some voting machines in Florida. Well, the king ignored us, so we got madder. Now we're forming secret societies and clubs and organizations. We're stealing guns and ammunition. There's talk of rebellion against the king. Somebody says we're secretly training an army in the woods. Well, now these groups are starting to get names like the Minutemen, the Militia, the Sons of Liberty, the Oak Ridge Boys. I was just saying if anyone was paying attention. Well, you don't want to join the Sons of Liberty. You know those guys want a revolution. You see, in this point in our history, we didn't want a revolution. We thought we were English, part of Mother England, and proud of it. But boy, are we mad at the king over the tax. And now, it's April 18th, 1775, and a Boston silversmith learns that the British troops under General Gage are going to march in Charleston, to Boston, to Lexington. They're going to arrest 2 of our greatest patriots for treason. Then they're going to go on to Concord and confiscate the guns and ammunition they found out we've got hidden there. They're going to squash the rebellion. Paul Revere is about to ride into history. He and his friend Mr. Dawes mount up. Paul Revere stopped at the Old North Church along the way when he found out the direction and the route that the British troops were going to take. And he had a signal lantern hung up way up in the belfry so the other riders would know. And they began their ride. They're pounding on every farmhouse, village, and hamlet door along the way. The regulars are marching. The regulars are marching. The British are coming. Well, when they got to Lexington, 17 miles away, they pounded on the door of Captain John Parker. He's the head of the local Minutemen there, you know. And they said something like, John, they're coming to arrest Samuel Adams and John Hancock for treason. And they're going to take our guns. And they rode off into the night. Well, Captain Parker, he knew what to do. His men are mad and they're ready to fight. So he sounds the alarm. 170 men answer the call. They're running out of the farms and villages and hamlets, carrying squirrel guns and pitchforks and clubs and waving the craziest looking flag you ever saw. Well, when they gathered on the green near the bridge, boy, we're waving that flag. We're ready to fight the army. Well, when they looked across the bridge, there wasn't anybody there. They got there too quick. The army was hours away. Well, Captain Parker saw his men cooling down, and he says, you know, you men might as well just go on home because they're not going to be here for a while. I'll call you back when they get closer. And that's what they did. Everyone went home, but now they've got a chance to think about this dumb thing they're about to do. I mean, can you imagine going up against the king's army with a squirrel gun? These men aren't soldiers. They're farmers, they're hunters, they're merchants. And they're going to fight a war. Not in a foreign land. It's going to be right in their own front yard. Pretty soon, it's after midnight. No one could sleep, you know. These men are tossing and turning, holding their breath through every fast course of the night to see if that's going to be the alarm. Well, finally, at 4:30 a.m. on April 19th, 1775, Captain Parker sounds the alarm again. The men are back. The man with the flag is back. We're ready to fight the army. Well, this time, they were there. The British commander looked across the bridge and saw all these mean-looking guys with their squirrel guns and pitchforks. And he says, lay down those arms and step aside. Captain Parker says, no, stand your ground. Fire, if only if fired upon. But if they want to have a war, let it begin here. That didn't scare the commander. He says, lay down those arms in the name of the king. Captain Parker looked at these men the second time. They're trembling with fear. They're ill-equipped and ill-trained. And he looked across the bridge at the best-equipped, best-trained army in the world. Well, what's he going to do? Well, he's got to get them out of there, right? Run, retreat, retreat. Take your guns with you. We'll fight another day. Well, everyone, they're all running around trying to get out of the way, and then somebody pulls a trigger, and by the rude bridge that arched the flood, their flag to April's breeze unfurled. Here once the embattled farmer stood and fired the shot heard round the world. The revolution has begun. This is called the Bedford flag because the man that carried it that day ran all the way from the little town of Bedford down the road just to get into the fight. His name was Nathaniel Page, and they traced this flag back through his family's history almost 100 years before this. It's in a museum today and is considered to be one of the oldest flags in North America. The Latin on this flag means conquer or die. Some of us died that day.